Welcome to the Retail Insider video interview series. I'm your host, Craig Patterson, and we're joined here with a special guest, Alan Anderson. You're a master jeweler, if we can call you that, I think. You've got a wonderful line called, by your own name, Alan Anderson, and you've just opened an Atelier. Really interesting showroom. I got to attend the opening in Toronto. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.
How did you get into the jewelry business? Can you give us a little bit of history here?
Well, it's one of those crazy roundabout patterns when you in your life. I would guess it all started my love of jewelry. I come from a very eccentric British family, and I had a couple of aunts that were quite over the top. We used to, as kids and as growing up, we would travel a lot between Canada and England. So I spent a lot of time back and forth. And my mother's oldest sister, Auntie Marie, was very flamboyant and very dressy and used to wear a lot of jewelry. She was lifelong friends with Norman Hartnell, that designed the Queen's clothes. And so she was very flamboyant and over the top. And she used to wear like this massive, big emerald and diamond ring that she used to take off and let me play with as a kid. And of course, that's probably why I love emeralds. And there's always a lot of green in my life. And I've always loved jewelry. I've always, like I said, my mother wore it, my aunts wore it. I played with it as a kid. And over the years in my career, I was in the visual industry for years with, a wonderful company now defunct called BB Bargoons that was iconic. And then I worked for many years at the Hudson's Bay Queen Street in their flagship store as a visual technician. And in the background, while I was working and having a full-time career, I met somebody who became a lifelong friend via fundraising in New York called Robert Sorrell, who was quite iconic and did all of Thierry Mugler's runway jewelry for Paris. And he literally, on a whim, I went with him to a wholesaler and bought rhinestones and settings and chain with no idea what to do with it, and came back from that trip and taught myself at my kitchen table 25 years ago to weld and solder, and literally just played, made a few things, gave things to people, and got it out there. And it's always, I think, a lot of it in fashion is luck. A friend of mine wore a brooch on her coat into Holt Renfrew one day in the winter, and the buyers and the vice president were on the floor, and they stopped her and asked her where she got the brooch. And they told them that I was Toronto based. They got in touch with me, and that would be, God, this is over 20 years ago. Over a holiday season, I brought in a small collection on consignment, and I'd work my weekly job, and then on weekends I'd scrub up and put on a jacket and a bow tie and go up to Holt Renfrew and stand behind the counter and sell my jewelry. And we sold out the collection over a holiday period, and they brought my collection in full time. And so over that time period, I was still working, but doing shows on the weekend. And then I had other breaks. There used to be a company in Palm Beach called House of Levon that was quite big in the jewelry industry then, and they carried my jewelry. And because of them, I got into Henry Bendel's in New York, and it all grew really by osmosis and very organically. And so 18 years ago, I had an opportunity to show at Toronto Fashion Week, and I needed time off to do it. And at the time, my manager couldn't get me or wouldn't approve the time off. So I quit. I quit a job of 14 years and did the fashion week, and literally at the end of the event sold off my inventory, and it paid my rent for 3 months. And that's how my business started. And then over the years it's grown. We've ended up selling across the world in small boutiques. I had celebrities wear us on red carpets, and it all started in my kitchen here in Toronto. And here we are, 25 years later, and I have this beautiful atelier that we work out of and do shows in, and my creative space is in here, and it's just kind of magical. And I'm following my own aesthetic, as you know, big and bold jewelry, and that's basically how I got into this.
Can you tell us more about the jewelry? I think it's kind of costume jewelry. You've got large,
Grab a
jewels
piece,
within
which
them.
makes
Tell us about that.
sure. Let me just grab a piece, which makes it even easier.
Yeah, excellent.
short of all behind everywhere in here. So this is a perfect example of something I'm working on for the next collection. So I welded and solder the actual metal pieces. This is all vintage Swarovski. And then these are machine-made pearls made out of the Philippines, but it's all hand set. I build every piece. Every piece is one of a kind. Every piece is signed, and I never duplicate. So it really is couture quality costume jewelry. And it's big and bold, and that's my mantra. I don't believe in being a minimalist. I'm definitely not a minimalist. It's all large, intricate statement jewelry. That's really my genre.
Is maximalist a term that people use instead of minimalist?
I use it all the time because I will say I'm not beige, and I don't live in a beige world, and I don't believe in minimal. So I really am the opposite to minimal. So I'm a maximalist.
What's the general price point on jewelry depending on, say, earrings or necklace and whatnot?
We go anywhere from $395 to $4,800 and everything in between.
Mhm. Yeah, so the price
So
point
it,
is a lot less than what you'd be paying. Say if you were going to, I don't know, a Burke's or something and getting those real stones,
oh,
that could be, well, millions, right?
well, if you went into Mickey Moto in New York and wanted a five-strand cultured pearl with a diamond and aquamarine clasp like this, you'd be paying like about $3.5 million. So, this is why, beautiful couture costume jewelry is something you'll have for your lifetime. It's an investment purchase. And it's something that if you look after it, you'll hand it down to somebody else. And I will say it's not just evening jewelry, it's meant to be worn every day. Wear it casually with a t-shirt and jeans. Wear it out to dinner with a jean jacket. Like, don't think of it as evening jewelry.
Yeah.
If
Now
that makes sense.
you recently opened an atelier. It's at the Blake House. So you've got it's a heritage house on Jarvis Street. You've got, is it the entire second floor?
Yeah, so the building itself, it was built for Edward Blake, the first Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. And half of the house is 1891. The half we're sitting in here is 1897. And it's a very historic building. Um, my workroom itself, that's just on the other side of this wall, was the famous cartoonist Ben Wicks. It was his creative studio for 20 years, which is kind of cool. I always think great creative energy that. And so I took the entire second floor, and it's given us obviously a bigger workspace when we're all working. And also we have the showroom that you saw where we were for the party. So um, it's always set up ready to receive guests now. And then on top of that, we're doing monthly events, co-events with other designers, because I really do believe in the cross pollination with other brands. And also the Canadian fashion industry, I think, really needs to work together and support each other. And because I've been in this industry now for so many years, I've got so many great friends that I think are some of Canada's and Toronto's best designers. And so we're going to be doing these monthly events in the space with other designers. We've already done two. The last one a week ago was with Whitney Linen, who does beautiful linen product in Toronto, and Whitney's a good friend. We have one coming up in June with Christopher Bates, and I think he is just I do believe he is Canada's best menswear designer. I think he's an amazingly talented and again a really great friend. And this is what I want to bring into this space. And we've now put together a calendar that goes right through till Christmas, where we're bringing in other people. And then in the holiday season in December, we're going to be open for 4 days, and we'll have about 8 designers in here. So we're going to say, do all your Christmas shopping and shop Canadian. And I think that it's again, it's a different experience for people.
That's amazing. That's highly collaborative, and you've got some big names there. I know Whitney Westwood and Christopher Bates. So
Oh yeah, and
immediately,
we're also we've got booked for the fall. We've got some really interesting ones. We've got Aaron is actually in Tokyo right now, and he has a line of beautiful jackets that are being made out of vintage kimonos. And so they're men's and women's. They're beautifully tailored and beautifully sewn by hand in Japan. So it is Suku. I can never say the word. I've got to learn to say the brand name. But he's coming in October. And in September, we're doing my fall launch here. And we're also doing a breast cancer initiative in early October here with Dino Dilio, who's a makeup artist. And we're going to be donating 25% of the proceeds for October, which will go directly to a Toronto breast cancer charity that we're just in the process of negotiating with. And then in December, it's going to be, like I say, that there's going to be a group of us here. I'm waiting to confirm everybody, but there'll be Victory of the People, which is Nicoletta, who does beautiful diamond jewelry. There'll be Whitney's already confirmed. And I want to fill the place with about 8 designers, and it'll be invite all your clients, invite your friends for 4 days. We'll be open and come out, have some holiday cheer and shop. And I think it's a really good opportunity and a really
This
fun space too.
No, it sounds like it's a lot of fun, and it's creating an event space which is highly experiential along with retail. Do you have any sort of, say, future plans 5 years out, what you might see for the Atelier or for your brand?
Yeah, yeah. In a few years' time, I would love to. There is somebody right now that occupies the 3rd floor right above us, which is the same as footprint as this floor. And eventually, I want to take the 3rd floor and move all the business and production end up, and make this even more retail space, but by appointment retail space. And I'm working on a line of handbags that'll be available sometime later on this year. We're working on the design process of that and the sourcing of the materials, but they're beautifully hand sewn. If there's a vintage chain on the handbag, it'll be like some of my necklaces that I make out of vintage chain. So I will build the chain itself for the handbag. And so they're going to be limited editions. There's not going to be a lot of each one. There'll be maybe 5 or 6 of each one, and that's it. For again, a really bespoke product. So I'm working on that. And we've got a ton of shows across the country. I was just in Boston 2 weeks ago. I'm in Saskatoon this coming month. Vancouver's in the fall. Scottsdale's in the fall. There's just a lot happening, and fitting all the pieces together as well as doing the regular events here.
Yeah. Now the bags, I'm guessing there might be some jewels involved, probably some satin,
There's
or
a
I'm just
beautiful
visualizing already what you might have. I'm just guessing
they're,
what they would look like.
they're going to be beautiful. They're very tailored, very elegant and sophisticated. And again, I like the idea that they're handmade in Toronto. They're made in Toronto. I think, as a designer and as part of the fashion community, we really need to promote the fact that we have all this amazing talent here, and that you don't have to buy things made offshore in other countries. You can buy beautiful product that's made here in the city.
And you've got a pretty good social network in terms of, I went to the grand opening of your Atelier a few weeks ago, and there were some pretty prominent people there.
Well, I'm very lucky that the people that were at the opening party are also friends. The one thing that happens in this business is the people that believe in what you're doing and wear what you're doing become friends. And I think I always say they're all my brand ambassadors. And I think that's the best way of looking at it. If you have somebody that believes in what you do and wears it out there, they will tell other people, and that's how you grow exponentially. And that's what's happened. So everybody that was at the opening party here, I was thrilled to have here, and people that have, been a part of what I've been doing for years and wearing me in all sorts of different places. And I do a lot of custom work for some of those people, and that was really amazing to have that support at the opening.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, we recently had a Royal Coronation. I think you're a bit of an expert in royal jewelry. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Idiot savant royal expert, well, this is where it gets crazy in here, because there's always tiaras. And what better time to talk about a tiara than during the coronation? It was great. I got up really early. We we sort of set up our TV room the night before, so I pulled out my grandmother's silver and my mother's teacups, and we got up at 4, and then we opened a bottle of bubbly. um, it was an amazing historic event to witness. I mean, it literally, when you're watching something like that, you're watching history. And I think it's important to watch all these milestones when things like this happen. I was very blessed to have been in London last June for the Platinum Jubilee, and I actually witnessed it all I went with some friends from Canada House, and I was at Royal Horse Guards for the Trooping of the Colour last year, and then watched the flyby of the planes that were going to Buckingham Palace from the roof of Canada House. And it was an amazing experience. And so witnessing a coronation, it really is a momentous occasion. And things like, how they recycled things, being very conscious of costs, which is really kind of funny when you're talking about royalty and being cost conscious, but using Queen Mary's crown for the Queen consort Camilla to be crowned in, that was kind of amazing. A couple of the Queen's own brooches that she used to wear. Cullen and Four was a brooch that she used to wear that was like a heart shape, and that was it had been set into the front of the crown. And again, it's that looking for pieces that are very, very recognizable and seeing them worn. And as a royal jewelry watcher, that's one of the things I love about royal jewelry and following it, is always being able to say, oh my God, there's Queen Mary's brooch, there's Queen Victoria's necklace. The necklace that Queen Camilla was crowned in is called the Coronation Necklace, and it was made in 1858 and has been worn by every queen or queen consort for their coronation since Queen Victoria, and was made out of an assortment of diamonds that they pulled out of old badges and a sword hilt in 1858 for the huge amount of 65 pounds by Gerard, the royal jewelers. Which you think 65 pounds in Victorian times is a lot of money. It's so crazy to think about it. So again, I was watching for stuff like that, and it was great to see. I wish they'd worn more tiaras. There was a decision made to wear floral fabric headpieces instead, which I think was a nod to trying to be a little bit more modern and a bit more in touch. But for jewelry watchers like me, I really wish they'd pulled out some big tiaras and worn. But that
Now,
didn't happen.
Kate Middleton, did she wore something from Alexander McQueen? Was that diamonds, or I wasn't watching
That
quite as closely as you?
Yeah, the Princess of Wales was wearing Alexander McQueen couture, including the headpiece. But she did have on for the official photographs at Buckingham Palace afterwards, one of Queen Victoria's festoon necklaces, a three-strand diamond necklace, which was really nice to see. And she was wearing a pair of Diana, Princess of Wales earrings. So that was quite interesting. So that we saw that. And you saw the historic aspect with the orbs and the scepters and the crowns, and I thought that was also interesting from all of us that watched her late Majesty's state funeral, having seen the orb and the scepter and the imperial state crown. The last time we saw it was when they were moved from Queen Elizabeth's casket. So seeing them used now at a coronation, I thought was just a nice continuum.
Now, the price point on this jewelry that was in this royal coronation, I'm sure the answer is priceless, but
Priceless. It's the
they would
provenance.
probably it'd be millions, wouldn't it, if we were looking at like.
I don't think you could have put a price on any of those heirlooms of the crown, because when you always think of when something is sold at auction with provenance, like when Elizabeth Taylor's jewelry was auctioned or the Duchess of Windsor's jewelry was auctioned, it always goes way above estimates because of the historical provenance. You can't even put a value on some of this stuff, and rightly so. Like the other thing that people don't realize is the crown jewels themselves, the imperial crowns, the scepters, they're not owned by the royal family. Those are owned by the state. They're owned by the country. They belong to Great Britain, and can never leave the United Kingdom. And where part of that came years ago into play was when Queen Mary and King George in 1911 attended the Delhi Durbar in India. They couldn't take the state crowns or the state jewelry to India for the Delhi Durbar. So Queen Mary, being Queen Mary, who loved jewelry, had new jewelry made in order for them to travel with it. And so that's the thing I always stress is that the crown jewels that you see in the Tower of London are not owned by the royal family.
Interesting,
Where
interesting.
when you see the jewelry they wear, necklace and earring wise and things like that, that is the property of the monarch. And there's a huge collection of jewelry. It began during Queen Victoria's reign that were dedicated heirlooms of the crown, and they're passed down from monarch to monarch. So this is why you'll see things now like Queen Camilla has worn. There's a Boucheron honeycomb tiara that was the Queen Mother's. She wears it quite frequently, and that was a bequest, a gift from. There was a famous socialite. This is where I go off track, but a famous socialite, Mrs. Greville, Margaret Greville, who was very wealthy, and she amassed a huge jewelry collection in her lifetime. And when she was quite good friends with the queen, who was the queen mother by then. And when she passed away, she left her jewelry collection to the queen mother. And in again, it's things like when Princess Beatrice got married, she wore an emerald and diamond bandeau tiara that was Mrs. Greville's, and it's the first time it had been seen in 60 years. And I always think I would have loved to have been and seen when it happened. There was a massive metal trunk that was delivered to Clarence's house when Mrs. Greville died, and that was her jewelry collection. And I can't imagine when the Queen Mother and other people unpacked it, how they must have reacted when you're left a trunk full of real jewelry. Like, and it's massive. The collection's massive, and it just added to the royal family's collection. And this is what royal watchers like myself, this is what we live for, these moments like a state dinner or a coronation when they pull this stuff out to wear it.
Now you've got the crown. I don't know if one of the crowns says, what is it? The Ruby of the Black Prince, which is
The Black Princess Ruby, which would you've got Edward the Confessor's sapphire at the back, and the Black Prince's ruby, which is actually a spinel. A spinel is part of the ruby family. It's not actually a ruby.
Oh.
A spinel is almost in the garnet family, but in medieval times, you find a red stone. It's a ruby, and I think the Black Princess ruby is from about 1357. And then you also, in the Imperial State Crown, you have Cullinan II, which is the Lesser Star of Africa, which is 317 carats of diamonds.
Wow.
They're little. You see, there's swinging pearls on the top near the orb and the cross on the top of the crown, and those were Elizabeth I's earrings.
Oh.
And so, it's just really interesting that everything in it is really historically significant. Just like in the imperial scepter that you saw the king holding with the rod and the scepter, the Cullinan one, the Star of Africa, is in the top of that, which is a 560 carat pear-shaped diamond. So just the weight of that, I felt so sorry for him sitting there, and that girl holding the jeweled sword, that she's the head of the Privy Council. And I was looking at them thinking, oh my God, this stuff is so heavy. And you're sitting there holding this stuff. That wouldn't have been fun.
Do they wear some reproductions when they're not at really, really formal events like a coronation? Something
I,
that's made to
I
look like it?
I doubt it. I doubt it. I think everything you see them wearing is from the royal collection. And the queen always loved brooches, and she amassed a huge brooch collection, and we've never really fully seen it. And that was her private property. Now there are other people who mix costume and real. Diana, Princess of Wales, was notorious for mixing, Wilson and Butler, very cheap costume jewelry with real, or going down to the Kensington High Street and buying, cheap gold medal earrings and wearing them to an event, which is great. And I know Catherine, now the Duchess or Duchess of Cornwall, they're Prince and Princess of Wales now. She just recently, I believe at the BAFTAs, she was wearing big earrings from Zara, which I thought was really good. So again, it's having the fact that you have access to this stuff, but you're still going to mix in costume. I think that's really great. Queen Alexandra was notorious for wearing fake pearls. She liked the effect of ropes and ropes and ropes of pearls. And there was a famous ball in the sometime around 1900 where her pearls broke and they scattered all over a ballroom floor. And the society hostess at the time had somebody gather them all up, and she just stood and laughed because they were fake. These are the sort of stories. This is why I make jewelry, Craig. Honestly, this is the sort of stuff that I love, and I read this stuff all the time for pleasure. And it brings history to life with these sort of stories.
And it sounds like you found your passion, which I think is really important.
Oh yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but how could you not enjoy your day if you're working on a tiara? I, that's you can't have a bad day when you're building a tiara. It's like that's the sort of point of what I do. As I always say, I'm making something beautiful in a beautiful space every day. And yeah, you have days where you're dealing with the business aspect and retailers and all sorts of things that can go haywire and deadlines. But you can't have a bad day when you're making and handling beautiful things. That's it.
Thank you so much. This has been Alan Anderson of Alan Anderson Jewelry. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Alan.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having me be part of this.
be sure to check out his website or make an appointment or come into the Atelier, located on what's the address, Alan?
We're 449 Jarvis Street, second floor, and it's by appointment, but you can get a hold of us on Instagram at @jewelsbyalan or through our website, which is alananderson.design.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us here today, Alan.
Thank you.
And I'm Craig Patterson. I'm the founder of Retail Insider. I'm also the publisher of Retail Insider Media and, of course, the host of the Retail Insider video interview series. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. Take care and bye for now.